Hey everyone, I'm Elysia Buss, and today I have the one and only fantastic Mandee Flanders here from New York, and she has her own podcast, two podcasters on the same forum. It's very exciting. Mandee also has an online business for the backyard barnyard horse owner. Oh my gosh, words today. You know that these things happen sometimes, right, Mandee?
Yeah, they totally do.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thanks. I'm excited. We're going to have some fun.
We are going to have some fun, and we're talking about some really important subjects. And I feel like we should start at the beginning in regards to intuition, because I think that is such an important part of building any business, is being able to lean in and listen to your instincts and intuition. So tell us about your story.
Yeah, well, I'll backtrack a little bit because I'm doing a lot right now, but it all started about maybe like 10 to 12 years ago. And I started building my brands online, my equestrian brands, and I was struggling to monetize them. So I played around with it for a couple of years back in like 2009, 2010, and did really well from a marketing perspective, but not so well from the money perspective. I think a lot of people can relate with that. It takes a while to build things up. We were actually just talking about this. It can take a while to like really establish yourself when you're just getting started. So I took a break from everything I was doing. I was, probably, I'm not doing the math, but I was like 20, 21. I'm 32 now. So if anyone wants to do the math, But I was like late teens, early 20s when I first started out all of this stuff. And,
that's so cool.
When you're that age though, you're kind of fearless. You just do whatever, Is it necessarily intuition based at that age? Not usually. You don't really go based on experience, based on gut feelings. You do everything by the seat of your pants, usually, unless you're just one of those smarter, 20-year-olds or whatever. But I mean, I'd like to think I was kind of smart at that age, but
I think I've only known two people that like really knew what they wanted to do like long term and took all the appropriate steps to do it. My brother Dan is one of them, and one of my friends Jen is another, and they have like high-end professions, and they was just like ding 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 ding, and they live these fabulous lives, and I'm like, wow. That's so nice.
Just checking all the boxes, right?
Seriously, in like the most beautiful, authentic way possible. And I'm just like, you guys are great role models. But for the rest of us,
right? Well, I remember when I was graduating from high school, and I was actually a homeschooled kid, but when I was graduating, everyone was like, okay, so what's next? Where are you going to college? And at that point, I just knew I didn't have a plan yet. But I was a very creative person. Obviously, I loved horses. There was a lot of things going on. I loved marketing. I loved horses. And I was very outgoing too. So I was like doing a lot of like camera work and blogging and all of that fun stuff. So I was kind of combining all of those passions together. But everyone, when you graduate from high school, all the adults are like, where are you going to school next? And to me, I was like, I don't know yet, but I do know that I have witnessed a lot of friends before me go to college, get out, graduate, and then not even end up in the profession that they're in debt for. And yeah, so I was like, if I'm going to spend that much money on something, I want to have a good idea of where I want to go with that. So I didn't do college at all. Still to this day, I haven't done any college. So I saved that money, but the experience came from just making mistakes and trying things out and doing a lot of things, getting to know all different kinds of people from all different walks of life. And that was where I started just really, gaining that experience and understanding how life just works, because you're really oblivious to it when you're like 20 years old. Most 20-year-olds don't have any idea. And I wasn't out like partying or going crazy or anything. I just didn't really have a clue. So it was a lot of just live and learn and figure stuff out as you go. And so I like to think I'm a lot smarter now in my early 30s than I was, 10, 12 years ago.
That's funny. I do feel like something magical happens when you turn 30. Did you feel like something magical happened for you when you turned 30? Like the day?
I was in Hawaii when I turned 30, so it was pretty magical.
Great day. Did you go to the black sand beaches?
No, I didn't actually get to see those. So my husband and I went to 3 different islands, and we had a really good time. We spent 3 weeks there, but it was a good trip. But yeah, I would say turning 30, it kind of shifts things over a little bit. It's funny how that number just kind of is like, it's a wake up call. Like, okay, you're not in your 20s anymore. Got to get your acts together.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting too. So I'm turning 41 next Tuesday, and it's being 40, it's like another jump. And like, I love being 40. And I also look at it though, like in regards to you saying like, oh yeah, I was blogging and doing all these marketing things, like the difference of 10 years just societally of like what you had available to you to like transition into those different spaces. And so it's really fun for me to get to hear about all these amazing things that these 30 somethings are doing. And I'm like, this is so cool. And I love it. So thanks again for being on the podcast. And when you and I first started talking, you hadn't launched your podcast yet, I remember.
Right.
Yeah. So what was that like for you, like jumping into that space? You seem to be flourishing beautifully in it, by the way. You've done a great job as an outsider, like looking in.
Thank you.
Yeah,
well,
welcome.
It was a bit of a process. I knew in 2020 that I wanted to start a podcast. And I know it was kind of like the thing to do. Everyone was like, oh, we're stuck at home. Let's start podcasts.
Seems reasonable.
And
yeah.
I'm not usually a bandwagon kind of person, but like at that point, my time was freed up. So I said I might as well, because if I wait a lot longer, like the more I waited, the more I saw other podcasts coming out that were in the similar spaces, what I wanted to do. So I said, I just need to get this out because everybody's going to keep coming out with podcasts and I just have to go for it. Yeah. But it still was a process for me. And I didn't share this part of the story, but between the time that I had started, working in the equestrian space online 12 years ago, I took a break and completely stepped away from it until 2020. And I came back in 2020 because I had been doing event marketing for the past like 8 years. And I had no events to work in 2020. So I found myself just completely pivoting everything. And that was when I really tapped back into my former passion, which is, what I'm doing now with the equestrians and growing an online community. But so as part of that is coming back to that about a year ago, actually, because it was May of last year. So it's kind of exciting to talk about it now. But I came back to the space and I was like, all right, what can I do to do things differently this time around? Because I was broke as all heck when I did this 12 years ago. I said, what can I do different now? Yeah. And podcasting was part of that strategy. So I had the plan. I worked very thoroughly on that plan for months. I bought Pat Flynn's podcasting course. So for anyone who's familiar with like the podcasting space and people that teach podcasting, Pat Flynn is really great. But I paid like $800 for this course, convinced my husband that we were doing this during COVID, and like throwing money at things during COVID was scary. But I said, I will take this course, I will complete it, and I'm going to launch this podcast and I'm going to do a great job at it. And like people can teach themselves how to do podcasting, like from YouTube, that you can definitely do that. But I just wanted to have that step-by-step, like almost hand-holding process of here's what you need, here's the steps, don't miss this, buy this equipment. And so I went through the whole thing and it was super helpful. But it took me a while to get through it, just like finding the time. And so I probably planned that podcast for like 6 months before I finally made a move on it. And honestly, it was probably longer than that because I didn't release it until March. But I'm also a bit of a perfectionist, so I'm not going to put something out until I'm like, this is ready to go. And it's been a while, people.
Unlike me, which in like last June, I was just like, yeah, so there's this need and I'm just going to start interviewing people and we're just going to send all the like raw, unedited footage like out into the world. It's going to be great.
Well, sometimes you do just have to start somewhere. And I keep saying to people that I talk to lately, like I am a recovering perfectionist. That is one of my faults, is that sometimes I will like research the heck out of something. I will wait until it's just right and put it out there. And you do just need to put it out. So I'm still working on finding that balance, but I do put out some good stuff because I spent so much time on it.
Yeah, no, you definitely do. And it's interesting to see the balance and the different styles, because I look at the things that you put out and they're definitely more polished, and just how you promote them is really great. And so it's nice to see, but it takes a lot of time. And some people, I feel like they look at podcasts and they don't really they don't realize how much time and effort goes into like reaching out to people, like scheduling, putting together the artwork, putting together the content, any editing that needs to go forward. Like there's so much to it. But yeah, and which brings us to like building that audience and nurturing it, like growing that community. Like how have you done that?
Yeah, well, in 2009, I started a Facebook group, and at the time it was called Horse Industry Business Owners. And it was something that I built kind of on the side in addition to my blog. So you mentioned I had a blog for backyard horse owners, and that's called Horse Family. But that caters more to people that are just like owners or horse enthusiasts looking to have fun with their horses in their backyard, just be casual. That's a different audience. And I wanted an audience that also helped support business owners in a different space. So they're still equestrians, but those are people that have some kind of business that is either equine based, or they service equine business owners or equine equestrians. So I had these two spaces, the Facebook group and then the blog. Well, when I left the industry, when I left the horse world and went and did events for 8 years, the group still existed, but I didn't really do too much in it. I put a couple of posts like on auto schedule for once a week, and it just kind of sat there. And when people wanted to pop in and say something, they did. But I wasn't really an active participant. So when I came back in 2020, I was like, all right, I know that I want to revive this group, but do I want to just like get rid of it? Do I want to start completely from scratch? And I didn't know what the right answer to that question was. So I said, I'm just going to see if I can like dig up this dead group and if I can stir people back up and get them to participate in the conversation again. And it was really a shot in the dark. I had no idea if that was going to work or not. But it actually did. It worked out really well. And so that group that was formerly Horse Industry Business Owners has been renamed. So it's now called the Leadline Community. And it was to tie in with my branding to the Leadline Podcast, which is the name of my podcast. So it got renamed, but there's about 1,500 people in there. I went through in December of last year, I kicked out a bunch of people that had been in there for like 10, 12 years that I knew like weren't using the group at all, which helped with the engagement. But it's been really exciting to see how that would work, because sometimes you just don't know with social media.
Yeah. The whole algorithm situation. I'm just like, how does this work?
So true.
So are there particular things that you've been doing to nurture that group? Like you have your podcast. Has it been helping you to do more inspirational stuff like Q&As, polls? Like what would you recommend for people that are really starting on that journey and but struggling to get the engagement with their audience?
Yeah. So with this group, sometimes you have to see what works for your audience, because not every audience is going to be the same. I mean, most of the time they're not going to be the same. So for me, it was just like, what time of day does my audience spend the most time on Facebook? What kind of posts am I putting up that they're the most responsive to? And just playing with that stuff. And I'll be honest, like sometimes it means throwing out a post, seeing that no one saw it or no one did anything, no one reacted, no one commented. And I'm like, delete. And I just get rid of it.
You don't need that either.
That later. So it is a bit of a learning process, but one of the things that I hear the most often from group admins is they're like, I feel like I'm the only one talking in the group.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of look at a few things. Like number one, what time of day are you posting? Maybe your audience isn't even like on Facebook at that time. What kind of content are you posting? Are you talking at people instead of with people? Because that's going to make a difference too. Yeah. And the other thing is like, don't get discouraged if you feel like you're the only one talking, because sometimes in the beginning, that's literally all you're going to be doing, is just doing all the talking while people sit and lurk and see what kind of content it is. There's so many Facebook groups out there and people are getting invited to them constantly. So like, you don't know that your group is necessarily going to appeal to someone. They might have to sit there and watch what's going on before they feel comfortable with participating. And I've experienced that too. Like when I went through and did my big purge in like December, January, I put up a post, and I was kind of clickbaiting these people, but I put up a post and was like, I'm deleting inactive members. If you're still here and you want to stay, comment. And I knew that was a little bit of a jerk move, but I was like, I don't know who's using the group or not. And the more people that comment, the more they'll see it in their feed. And so like people are coming out of the woodwork like, oh, I've been here. I've been watching everything. I'm like, who is this person? People that I've never talked to before. And like, there's probably a good like 20 to 25 people in the group of 1,500 that I talk to on a regular basis that I have a good relationship with. And I know that's not very many in the big picture, but still, I'm always surprised when someone comes out of nowhere. I'm like, who are you? I didn't know you were paying attention. And it's exciting.
Yeah.
But that was something that I had done was I was like, if you want to stay, leave a comment. Otherwise, I'm going to start like filtering people out. And there honestly, there's no easy way to filter people out of a group. So if someone's watching this and they're like, how do I do that? Well, you literally have to go in and individually click on each member's name and remove them from the group. There is no easy tool or way to do that. And so I went through and was like, this person has a picture of a flower as their profile image. Like it was like just kind of picking people out that didn't look like they were engaging and said that they had joined like years and years ago that I knew I hadn't seen anywhere.
So some people that I've talked to that are building groups sometimes say that to like engage with each person, like send them a message that's a new person to your group. Do you do that?
Sometimes, but that's time consuming. So it is tough. One of the things that I do right now is that with the membership questions. So again, if someone has a group and they know that they can tweak and edit those membership questions, I have them answer some very specific questions. And one of those includes, now anyways, it includes their email address. So not only am I building the Facebook group, but I'm now building my email list as well. And they only get hit with maybe 1 or 2 emails a month. And they're usually updates about very specific things. But that way I can keep in contact with them in another platform.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really help the Facebook engagement kind of thing, but at least then I've got another way to interact with them so they can be like, oh yeah, I did join that Facebook group.
That makes sense. And I feel like sometimes it helps people feel like they're important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That person cares, they see me, and so on and so forth. What do you do in regards to your intuition in deciding what content to bring?
It's been a lot of experimentation. And one thing that I have found has worked out really well is that it's not so much like, here's a tip, do this with your business. And, you know, like educational and instructional stuff. That stuff is great. But I actually find that my audience responds better to inspirational types of posts and motivational types of posts that help them realize they aren't the only ones struggling with an issue. So as I've done polls and questions in the group, you know, everyone is there to learn, but let's be real, at the end of the day, I don't have all of the tools to provide them everything that they might need in business. I'm not an accountant. I can't teach them all the things when it comes to like playing with their numbers and knowing how that works. I can't teach them how to make a business plan. But I do know a lot about marketing. So I spend a lot of time talking about marketing. But I also am big on just building that community and that relationship. And we're almost like more of an accountability group to each other. Like, hey, this is what I'm working on. You know, can somebody help me with this question? And so I've just kind of gone in that direction of just realizing that the best responses lately have come from just like letting people know they're not alone in different situations. Because I've definitely felt alone with stuff that I've gone through in my business. And it's actually very encouraging when you realize that like, actually there's a bunch of other people dealing with the same stuff. We're just not talking about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I love how you do a certain kind of marketing with your podcast that people can come on and they pay you a certain fee and then they get to do like a push, unpromotional push during it. And then you have your calls. Tell us a little bit more about that structure, because I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a couple different things. So the podcast itself, the audio podcast, I haven't monetized that one at all yet. That one's all just been guests that come on the podcast so far. We can monetize it, but it hasn't yet. It's new. But one of the things that you've seen quite a bit of is the networking events that we do on Zoom once a month. And that one I have monetized. So typically how that will work is I'll have someone come in that'll want to sponsor the networking event, and we'll talk a little bit about their brand. And then they'll essentially like guest host the event with me, and we'll kind of work on asking the questions as a group. And that has been super fun. That was something I started back in maybe August or September of last year. I'd have to go back and look and see when the first one was. But I said, well, there's no events. How can we get together and get to know each other in a way that's going to be effective? And I said, all right, let me see if I can get everybody on Zoom. Don't know if it's going to work. Well, let me see. And I just kind of put it out there like, hey, we're going to do a virtual networking event. Here's the first one. And the first one, I didn't monetize the first one. It was just like that shot in the dark. Like, let's see if this sticks. Let's see if people even care. And so I did that first one, and a lot of people showed up. And by a lot, I mean like 8, which felt like a lot at the first one, 8 or 10. And they were like, this was awesome. So I kept doing it once a month after that. And by the second or third one, I said, well, I got to make some money, because like I'm spending a lot of time coordinating this.
Yeah.
And that's where the sponsorship idea came in, because I did not want to charge people to attend. I think that you have to have a very specific type of event to sell tickets to attendees for a virtual type of event like that. And I didn't feel like that was right for the audience. So I was like, I'm not going to charge people to show up, because I don't think that's going to work. So I decided to just like put it out there. Hey, if someone wants to sponsor this, we can highlight your brand during the networking event, and we'll talk about you and invite people to either download like your freebie on your website, or you can offer a special discount, or you can do a giveaway. There's definitely options as far as that's concerned. So my big thing has really been more of like intertwining the brand sponsorships in with what I'm doing, without as much of the like charging individual people to show up to what I'm doing.
No, that's really cool. And so, and for anybody that's interested in doing that, that's out there, what do you usually have them pay you?
It varies. I actually just revamped the whole program. So it was really cheap in the beginning. It was super cheap. And then I was like, I'm spending like 15 hours like putting this whole thing together. It was a lot of hours. So depending on what you're looking at, typically that's going to run usually around like $4.97 now. So now that includes a lot more than just the event though. I've included like email sponsorship. We can talk about podcasting. I will do like a live Facebook interview with you. So it's a very nice sponsorship package at this point, where they get a lot for that price point. And I know people are always looking for unique ways to build relationships with people that are specifically within their target audience. And so if I did raise the price, I haven't sold a lot of them since I raised it, but the key for me was we get deals with the right brands.
Right.
And I've been so busy too. I've been podcasting, which is a separate thing. But there's a lot that goes into it. And I promise anything that I put out, it's very well prepared and thought out. And I mean, I even have a really fancy media kit now that I've put together. So it all looks very good. And, the email list has been growing every day, which is awesome. So there's a lot of good things happening.
That's fantastic. And then you have your rule of 3.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your rule of 3.
Yeah. So the rule of 3 came from making poor decisions over the past, again, 10 to 12 years. And so
Well done it.
I know, it's so true. There was a lot of times where, again, I was jumping into making decisions by the seat of my pants. And of course, like I got married during that time frame too. So figuring out in married life, like, what are we going to make big decisions on next? Is it where we're going to rent, where we're going to buy a house, when we need a loan for something? Like there's a lot of decisions that you then have to do as a team. And also my husband's very, very impulsive too. Like, hey, it's going to be great. Let's do it. So sometimes just being like, oh, he's excited. It's going to be great. Let's do it. And figuring that out. But we have made as a team some bad investments, some poor financial decisions, not in the space that I'm in now, but we also do like real estate investment on the side. So from that perspective, there's been some bad decisions made in that space. And so like bouncing back from that has been tough. But one thing that we have learned, because I believe always take your learning experiences from whatever you can,
Yes.
like pick yourself back up, it's a lot to think about sometimes and it's hard to do, but pick yourself back up and what did you get from it? And it took me a couple of years to get over that last one that was really bad. But once I did, it was like, all right, what are we taking from this? And the key was, now whenever we have a big decision to make, we check with 3 different sources before we move forward with that decision. And that was because we were often just going with whatever was set in front of us first. We did that with our very first apartment together. We looked at the first one, we rented it. What were some other examples? Oh, contractors to do work on your house. Now we do not work with the first one that comes. We check and get quotes from like 3 of them if we can. You're not always going to have 3 options, but in a lot of cases you will. So we now have really implemented that, because if you check with 1, you don't necessarily know what else is out there. If you check with 2, then you're like, well, which one am I going to go with? Because there's this one or this one. But if you check with 3, then you've got that tiebreaker, and you have more data to work with. I'm a researcher. I like data. And so I'm like, all right, this price, or this price. And then at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to go with what feels right. And the more options you have, the easier that decision is going to be in most instances.
The more experience you get.
Yeah. We really live by that now. It's something that we've we're both in our 30s currently. And so it's something that we have really implemented over the past few years.
No, that's cool. It sounds very functional and helpful. I think Brene Brown does something. She has this ring that she turns 3 times or something like that before she says yes to something. And she doesn't necessarily feel like she really wants to do I feel obligated to say yes to this? Or do I actually want to do it? Or and the same for no, am I just ridging because of some guilt or shame that's somewhere there? And I love that, to really take the time to pause, because we think about that in teaching as well before we try to over-explain something to a child. Take time for the pause, give them the opportunity to think about it, and not have you come to their rescue.
Well, the key is too, yes, sometimes we're pressured to make big decisions, and we're even pressured to make decisions fast, especially with online marketers these days. They're like, the cart's going to close on this day. And so one example, this isn't even online, but this just came to my mind. I'll share it. I went to a trade show. I went to the Equina Fair in November of 2019. And one of the young women who was working at one of the booths at the show was showing me this product. And she was super excited about it. And I actually complimented her, because I was from the trade show business too, an event business. And I was like, you're doing a really good job. Thank you so much for showing me how this works. And this is really interesting. And I told her I was going to think about it, and that if it was something I wanted to do, I'd swing back to her booth a little bit later. And before I left, she was like, well, just so you know, the majority of people never come back that say that. And I was like, okay. And she said it in a way, I can't remember the statement word for word, but she had said it in a way where I was like, all right, well, now you really turned me off, because that is actually how I deal with my buying decisions. Is I don't buy something impulsively on the spot unless I knew what I was looking for when I walked in. Right. But if it's something I hadn't planned to buy, I think about it. And I had spent that whole time at the trade show walking around shopping for horse trailers. And I went to every horse trailer dealer at the show because I was looking for the right one. And I did buy from someone at the show. I didn't buy from them for 4 more months, but I did buy from a dealer at the show. And so I was just like, I have to think about things sometimes. I don't like to make my decisions impulsively anymore, unless I go in with a plan and I know what I'm after.
Right. But is that really impulsively?
No, it's not. It's you have a plan. So, and then at that point, I guess you've still thought about it before you go in.
I like to be grounded in my decision-making. Yeah. And I think that's a great quality to have in a person, honestly, because to be able to sit there and really think things through. And
as long as you don't think too long.
Yeah, don't think too long. But there's that balance, right? To be able to trust your intuition, to trust your instincts of what's right, but also trust your instincts, especially if there's something that seems a little bit off and you can't quite put your finger on it. right? And be like, okay, my instincts right now are telling me I need to wait and I need to think things through a little bit more before I can make this choice. And like both situations are correct. Doesn't mean somebody's not as smart if they can't like jump, if they don't know right away, it's not about that at all.
Well, I also say, like, if it's meant for you, it's not going to go away when you wait for a little bit. It'll still be there when the time is right. Maybe the time isn't that moment, but if it's actually meant for you, it's going to be okay if you wait just a little bit of time.
That's a really important message, Mandee. I'm so grateful that you said that to the audience. It's a good reminder, And then in regards to horses, you still have your own horses right now, right?
I do. I have one horse and I have had her since I was 16. So I've had her 16 years.
That's such a beautiful thing. What's her name?
Lark. She is a paint mare.
That's cool. What do you do with her? Do you trail ride or?
Yeah, I'm a very casual rider. Again, hence the backyard equestrian blog that I run, because that's just me. I'm very casual. I just don't overthink. When it comes to my horse, I don't really overthink getting out there and competing and doing too much. And it's great for people who love that, but it's never really been a goal of mine with this mare anyways, to go out and compete a lot. But I do enjoy trail riding, and I just enjoy like leisure, like hanging out with friends, going out as a group. And she's at a good barn that's like 30 minutes from me. So, so we go out and we like trail ride and stuff every once in a while, which is fun.
No, that's so nice. And I love what you do because you have such a specialized niche in the market, because I don't think there are that many people that are out there that are creating that space for a bunch of business owners within the equine community to come together. I mean, it's similar to what it is that I'm trying to do with my YouTube channel, but just slightly differently. More refined, shall we say.
Well, every space is different too, whether you do a lot on YouTube. So I don't do as much on YouTube anymore. I did 12 years ago, but I don't do that as much anymore. So your spaces all look a little bit different depending on where you're spending most of your time.
Oh, that's for sure. Do you have any last words of wisdom or anything that you're truly passionate about, horse related or otherwise, that you would like to share in a message on this platform?
Yeah, I think just to kind of touch back into the community building and the accountability, another thing of many that I've learned over the many years is that accountability is so important with what you do. And, don't isolate yourself as entrepreneurs. If you're a business owner and you're watching this or listening later, don't isolate yourself, because that's where we get stuck. That's where we make bad decisions sometimes. Like, seriously, if my husband and I had asked other people before we invested a bunch of money in this one project a few years ago, we probably wouldn't have made that decision. So if it's important, like, it's okay to ask other people. And if you're not sure who to trust, like, start building your circle. And that's really what the Leadline community is about. We're here building that circle together. And there's going to be some people that you connect with, some maybe that you don't. That's okay. Like, find the people that are right for you and connect with them, and then start building that trust up so that you have people to go to when you need help, when you just have questions.
No, that's really beautiful. Thank you for that message. And what are your feelings, really quick, one more on the abundance mindset and how to help that within our communities?
Yeah, that's another one that's really important. Like, just stay away from the thoughts that aren't what you want. Think about the things that you do want and what you're working towards. Like, we really have to get away from this. Like, I have no time, I have no money. We are entrepreneurs because we want the freedom, right? We didn't get into what we're doing to like not have any free time. That's the whole point. So like, if you don't have time, and again, I do this with my husband all the time. He's like, oh, I'm out of time. These clients call me at like 11 at night. He's in real estate. He's a realtor too. And he's like, they're calling me all hours of the night. I'm like, you don't have to answer the phone. And I say that too to group members that are in my community. Like, if people are wearing you down, just don't deal with them at that time. Like, say that don't pick up your phone. You don't have to. It is your choice. And so from the abundance mindset standpoint, it also comes back to just like claim what you want for yourself. Don't claim what you don't want for yourself. If you don't want people calling you late at night, then don't answer the phone. If you are afraid of being broke all the time, like make a plan for how you're going to make more money and have more time. So just focus on the positive, the good stuff, and connect yourself with good people, and you will get there.
That's fantastic. Well, my friend, thank you so much for being on with us today. I really appreciate your time. I know you are a very busy lady. And yeah, I look forward to getting to watch more of the things and listen to more of the things that you're creating and supporting you as much as I can.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I had a great time.
You're very welcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, everybody out there, thanks so much for watching. Bye.